It's about 75 degrees. My left hand about 30 on the bitch. You know? 30 below, that is. Yeah.
I'd like to welcome you to the Motherfucking World's Greatest Podcast in the
entire world.
Oh, that was quick, short, sweet. In the universe, the galaxy.
The dunya.
The universe, the galaxy.
The dunya.
I don't know what dunya means, so.
That's all encompassing. Everything you just named: the world, the universe, the galaxy. Allah made all of that. It's worldly possessions.
And because Allah made all of that, and the three men who are here with us, we have a special guest today, Dajuan Pitts in the fucking building.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, brother.
Yeah, made it to the big show.
No, don't do. See, I like this. I like this type of energy. Yeah. Dajuan Pitts, you are a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
You are a property manager.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you?
I'm a son, father.
Ooh.
Not yet though. But I'm an entrepreneur. And I think those are a little bit some of the hats that I have.
When we talk about realtor, I think people see the person with the suit or the tie or dressed up nice selling houses. Is it that simple?
No. I mean, I think it's so funny. Like, you know, like right now, there's so much controversy with like some of the shows on the internet and stuff as far as like showing like what real estate is, but no, it's like it's not even as glamorous as what people make it seem, and there's so many deals that like fall apart all the time. Every deal is different, but it's not as simple as what people make it seem.
So it's not selling Sunset. That's what you're trying to tell me.
No, or not selling Tampa or whatever. it's a little bit of everything, but I think that it's not as glamorous. No, but it's a lot of stuff that goes into it that people don't talk about.
Do you do commercial or do you do
no?
Okay.
I only do residential.
Okay.
I haven't gotten into commercial yet.
All right.
So we talk about it's a lot of things that people don't. So from your perspective, how would you explain what being a realtor is?
The biggest thing that people don't talk about is how much psychology and therapy goes into it. Because, like, for instance, right? Say you're a client and you're like, I want to live in blah blah. I want to live in let's go with that Bowie.
Okay.
But you got like, let's say like District Heights money,
okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a little bit of disparity in the price range that a person has. So a lot of people sometimes want like, it's weird to say this, but like it's really all about what you're pre-approved for, right? So if you come in and you know you might come in and be like, you start looking at before you get a realtor, you start looking at houses in Bowie. Then you kind of get your pre-approval. That's why you should never start your process without finding out how much you're approved for. Because so many times you run into people that start that they're pre-approved for this, but they started out this. Because it's two different disparities, right? It's two different areas. There's a lot of factors, location, that come into play. And the biggest thing is like, you're managing your client. That's the biggest thing. You're managing the client, and then from there, you'll have to manage the financing. The financing is the part that that people don't think about. People come to the realtor, a person come and be like, hey, I got a 580 credit score, right? But in actuality, as me as your realtor, my job is to find you a home. It is not. It's. I really don't even know. I don't get your credit information.
That's the financing.
I don't get your credit information. I don't see how much you make. I don't see any of those things really. I can know about that, but my job is not dictated on your financing and how much you make. That's where you get the right to do two things in real estate. You get the right to pick your home inspector, your realtor, not 2, 3, and you also get to pick whoever you want for your financing. And financing is a huge part because after I get you and after I find you the house, we get the deal, say we in the deal. Now we go through these contingencies, whether that's home appraisal and inspection, then there's always a financing contingency sometimes. Financing is the people that like slam dunk the thing. Like, because if the bank doesn't approve you or say or get you to the point that you really can close, then there's nothing. I could get you the best house in the world, but if the financing people can't close you unless you a client that just got cash, and then we can really talk. But yeah, those are the different parts of the deal.
This housing market, I've recently bought a house. I think
Congratulations.
Thank you. Has been, I think, very crazy from just everything I've seen as far as the things you're talking about. Knowing what you want versus being able to get it, financing, all those things. Is there one part of the game, we talk about financing, but for you, do you're like, I'm even surprised about it in the whole process, the housing buyer process?
The part is something that I'm surprised about. No, I don't think any more about it at this point.
What about when you first started?
When I first started, I would say the biggest thing that surprised me in real estate was that like, I guess once you get to that, getting inside the deal, getting approved or getting a deal accepted is not the part that's really the hardest. The hardest part is as soon as you get the deal in and it gets accepted on both parts, you got to manage the whole process more. You got to make sure that, if a person has a contingency, whether that's a home inspection, you got to make sure that's in. You got to make sure you got to manage the financing person. You got to manage your client, because people are making the biggest purchase of their life, and anything can happen. Things change. People, want to maybe start buying furniture. There's so many different factors. There's a lot of moving parts, and you have to manage people. You got to make sure people are doing their job in a lot of ways. So that's another thing.
Single family versus condos versus townhomes. Are they all different? Are they all the same? Talk to somebody who may not know.
Single family, of course, more like is more of like a detached home. So, for instance, a home that is pretty much not connected with anything. You might have a backyard. A condo, more or less, is in maybe a 3-story, 4-story, a building. But the biggest thing is the fact that they're managed by an association of people, and then you pay fees as far as of upkeeping certain things on the premises, whether that's paying maintenance salary, paying for certain things in the facilities, whether that's equipment or different things like that. Condo, you said single family, what was it? Townhome, and of course townhomes have sometimes more like they have an HOA, so that could mean like a HOA could do all the roofing, right? If you replace one roof, like it's a lot of different factors. But all of those things really depend on where you buying that.
You're located in the Maryland, D.C. area.
Correct. As of now, yep.
As of now, what has been maybe the thing that you, since you started, you've learned about this area as far as housing that maybe some people don't know?
I guess the biggest thing that I've ever realized is how important location is. Like, location is everything in real estate. Like, a house being like on a main street compared to a house being one street over, that's even as a critical part. That's real, because if you want to, a lot of people think about it like you're on a main street, a main highway. It could be a 2-way highway, right? So then now that means if your house is there, you're gonna deal with noise, right? And now say you got a driveway, right? You got to back out to the driveway every single time. Could be cars. There's a lot of so many different factors, but location is everything. Like, location is everything.
What made you get into real estate?
It's a good question. Be honest. I'll say, so the biggest thing was a person that I know that I always wanted to be. I always thought I was gonna be a therapist, and people around me were like, yeah, you definitely should be a therapist. And one day I was talking. It was my birthday, and I was talking to someone, and they said, the way you are and the way I think your life is gonna be, like the way how you live, like you should be in real estate. You shouldn't be a therapist. And this is right when I graduated college. It was August 18, 2014, I remember. And she was like, you should be in real estate. And her dad is in real estate. He's a big time real estate person.
So that was all you needed, just kind of that push from her.
Was when she said that, it was like, right? Like, she said it, and I was like, okay. Like, and then it's crazy how life happens, right? Because that's August. And then that time I had just graduated, so I was working, like, at school, like, doing before and after care. And before and after care because I was actually going to work for Metro. And I got a job working for Metro, but I was waiting to take a test. So I needed some money. While I was doing that, so I was working at school and studying for this test. And in that time, right, I was talking to one of my best friends, Stephen Timms, and we were talking. And he was like, and I needed some money. He was like, use your resources. He was like, you gotta use your resources now, like, to figure out your next move. And me and him was talking. He was like, you know, my mom always just, you know, she could help you. His mom was was basically like a big time person, a president, like, or a regional manager of a building, of an apartment complex, and it had 2,400 apartments on it. And I sent her an email, and I'm like, hey, you know, I would love to just come in and make some extra money. I still got an email, actually. My mom sent it to me a while ago. And, you know, hey, I want to come in, and I just want to, you know, work there a little bit, you know. And I came in, did an interview, and she gave me a job. And that's why nepotism is so important to me. But yeah, that's kind of what started. I like it. And that brought me into property management. So I was interning. She said, hey, I'm gonna teach you every single thing about property management. So that was my first taste, and even in real estate. And at that time, I didn't even know property management was real estate. Yeah. Well, I did, but I didn't. So that was my first thing in real estate. And then it goes back to saying, this is how I really got in. I had a lady, her name was Miss Joe. She was like our manager, because I was a leasing person. And she, you know, used to always have us, like, have me. She would come bring me in her office, and, like, she's really spiritual and, like, write stuff down. Write and talk to me and talk about life or whatever. And one of the things that I was like, you know, I want to sell houses. I want to be in real estate. And she was like, okay, well, find a real estate class. And I did, and I was talking to, I found one, and not only, you know, did I take it, but I had told my friends about what I was going to do, and me and one of my friends, we took it together. So that's kind of how I started in real estate, and I had that's how I started in real estate.
We're talking about real estate location and everything. I'm curious, just from, like, the actual realtor, do you know when something, because you lived there your whole life, the PG, DMV area, do you know when something is like, that don't make sense? So, like, a house costs, like, X amount in a certain neighborhood, you're like, that just doesn't jive with what I know.
Yeah. So, like, I had a client, right? My mom actually had a client, because my mom's in real estate, too. She had a client, and she's like, it's a friend, and she's like, hey, Dajuan, for some reason, I had to take this lady to go see the house because my mom had something to do. And it was like Bird Farms or something like that. And this lady was approved for like $600K or something like that. And I was just like looking at her here because the houses were here, 4 houses, right? And then it was like a neighborhood, like a housing complex, affordable housing right there. And single woman, older, and she was talking to me about safety, and I'm like,
man,
why are you living here, right? Like, this is in the house is like 400 something thousand. I'm like, you're gonna pay for this, like, right here, you know? And that's kind of like, that was like one of those, like, no, not you. Like, and this was the beginning.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
This was the beginning. I was like, what? Like, why would you pay this for that? And that's kind of
That's the going rate for that shit now.
that was like, that was like 3 years ago. So it was like, but it was bars on our house. It was a brand new house, and they put bars on it. I'm like, I don't think that this, and it's crazy because she actually ended up buying a house in Glendale, where we're at. So yeah, that's perfect. That's crazy.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm also curious because you say you do property management.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the mindset, or what's different between getting someone into one of those buildings than actual, hey, I'm buying you a house, or we're getting you a house to buy?
So more or less, are you saying like property management? What's the difference between living in a house and property?
Yeah, or like when you get someone to, I guess, rent out the property, because I don't really know the process for the property management. So
okay.
Explain that to me.
So property management is two ways. Like, so most time, I mean, not two ways, but it's different. So for instance, I had a client, right, who, two clients actually. Some people are, when it comes to us and, millennials, some people are big into house hacking, right? So some people have their own, type of situations where they're like, I got this over here, but, I could be living with this person, but I want to get my first house. I want to get in real estate, whatever type of situation you have. But pretty much how it works is sometimes people want investment properties, or they want to get into, well, not necessarily, let's say, because it's different. I got to make sure I differentiate. The difference is because you want to spend more money on getting in the deal if you tell the bank or loan officer it's investment property, comparative to like if it's going to be your primary residence. Those are like two different things. Like you're going to spend a lot more money if it's an investment property, because you're not going to be able to get as much help, whether that's of course if you're a first time home buyer or whatever. So how I come in is in those situations is the fact that sometimes people don't want to live in their house. So, and sometimes some people were like, hey, I don't know anything about the process. Like, I don't know anything about this, and I want someone to rent this, and I want to find someone to rent it, and I want someone to pay me money, and I wanted someone to do every single thing. I want you to rent it, I want someone to pay me money, I want to collect the money, I want someone to deal with the maintenance, I want someone to deal with everything to oversee this property for me. And that's what property management is. I overseeing your home, and maybe you don't live there, maybe you do, or maybe you live in a part of it, and there's a part that you don't want to deal with, whether that's for short-term rentals and things come in that.
That's very interesting. So what?
I still didn't know that it was that complex.
Yeah. So I got you got my brain turning here.
Mm-hmm.
So first things first. What are the laws around that? Are there like specific laws like that say, hey, I can live here for
what's the rules?
A couple days or a couple, like, how does that work?
So, okay, every jurisdiction or place is different. So, for instance, more or less, right, no matter where you live, if you live in D.C., Maryland, wherever, if you live in the house, and so let's say you have English basement, or you have you live in the upstairs part of the house, and then you got a door downstairs, and the person can enter, can get in the house, and so like that's a lot of the things. So that is, as long as short, I'll make it short and sweet. If you are living in the house and it's a portion of the house, you can rent out that house pretty much as you want. So there are people in this world that rent out rooms, just a room in their house, and they live in the other room, and people pay for that. This is how Airbnb even started.
Okay, thank you. So let's do a full dive. So the renting of a room, that in itself, does that make it an Airbnb? Like, how does that? Do you explain a little bit?
So this is good, and this is the reason why, and this is purpose is great that you say, because it's branding, right? Because think about it, if a person literally says to themselves, they'll say, oh, you rent out a room, person will be like, oh, so you Airbnb.
Yeah.
And all Airbnb is a word that describes a situation.
Like Uber,
and that's all this Airbnb. All Airbnb is a marketing platform.
Car service.
It's a marketing platform, and there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. There's so many marketing platforms, but correct. But it's just like all Airbnb is a marketing platform that you can list your property on, and they take around 3%, and that's all it is. It's just, and but the difference is, and this is a question you may be asking, as far as like, there's two different things. There's a long-term rental and a short-term rental.
There we go.
So long-term rentals are pretty much anything over 31 days, right? Over 30 days. So if you rent for 30 days, and you pretty much have a contract that you sign, and whether it be 8 months, 10 months, 6 months, that's a contract. But you get that money every month, right? And the difference in the short-term rental, get your money up front.
So let's say you sell me short-term rental. I want to rent out your place for 4 days.
4 days, okay.
Have to pay you up front for
I'm not chasing you. I don't have to chase you. That's one of the biggest differences. Like, before you get anything, you get access to my place or anything, you pay up front. Whether you pay before. Now, long-term rental, you pay, you have a date date, and you have some leeway. But you get all that money before that person comes in. And it has to be, anything is considered a short-term rental or vacation rental. Typically, if it's, shorter than 30 days.
Okay. So, for you as the property manager, is there one that is more advantageous?
Well, yeah, I do long-term rental management, but that was only because it's one of my best friends. But I do not like long-term rental because I manage properties. I manage those properties, all different types of properties for big-time property management companies. Short-term rentals is more of my game, so that means more or less like we handle we handle as far as like a person's going to be there for typically 30 days or less, or sometimes 30 days or less, or however period. But short-term rentals is you're going to see more revenue, and you're going to see more revenue in a lot of cases, but it's like it depends on who you are, right? If your business model is like, I just want to make $1,500 a month, and I don't want to have to worry about that, worry about finding someone to fill the occupancy and fill up these amount of days, where short-term rental is more like, hey, a person can stay here for 4 days, you might make more money, but a person might not stay there again for 5 or 6 days, right? It just depends on what your business model is.
So, is it easier to handle contracts when it's a short term? But like you can handle more of them if it's short term, or if it's long term, you'll be able to like.
No, I mean, so it depends. So I would say like.
That's why it's on the business model. Because when she brought that up, that's why. That's what made me ask.
I would say exponentially for me, you make less money if it's a long term, in a sense, right? So like for instance, you got a person that
there's more turnover with the short term.
Oh yeah, it's more short. It's more turnover.
Yeah.
So if it's more turnover, what does that mean?
You get more bookings. You get more money. More, you know what I'm saying?
You need
more management.
Cleaning.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was about to get into that.
So
you need more cleaning.
So
because you get into cleaning and like you do maintenance and all that too, right?
my question: you have a cleaning service?
Yeah. So So I have a cleaning company. So that's
cleaning and disinfecting people if you need them.
So that's part of your entrepreneur you talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, that's one of the that's in our wheelhouse. We have a cleaning company.
That's one of the services you provide with your.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious. Do you provide it with, or is it separate?
No. I don't. I do. So that's two separate companies. So
all right.
yeah, that's cleaning. My cleaning company that's his own brand. Clean Moves is his own brand. But that is the benefit, right? My property management company pays my cleaning company.
That's what. Okay. Oh, so you got the monopoly down already?
Yeah. So for instance, right? I've had clients that I've helped you find a house. When I help you find a house, you don't want to live in the house.
I help manage your house, and you need to clean.
You need it clean. I'm going to clean your house.
Was this from the beginning, or did you kind of run into, I need someone always to clean these places. How about I just do this too?
This was from the beginning. This all was from the beginning.
All money in, baby.
Like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, from the beginning. I became a realtor. I became a realtor. I always saw that when I went to listings, I went to listings that were dirty, right? And I'm like, I was a realtor, but I'm also was a property manager. And this was when I was for a company. When you're a property manager, you hire everybody. So you take those, you hire, you got to maintain a property, So it's like you got cleaning, you got maintenance, you got all these different contacts, you got all these different vendors. So I'm huge into relationships. So I just build relationships with all these different people. But those are all logistics and all things you manage. You got to keep up with the curb appeal. You got to keep up with all these different things, right? So with everything, I always, and this is the thing about property management, I pick my cleaning company. Most property managers, if you big enough, you gonna pick your cleaning company. So the difference is, right? That's me. And this is the thing about cleaning. About that business. We do. We manage our own and we clean our own, but we also clean them for other people. But I control. I'm not chasing. I don't have to put in a bid for a cleaning because it's like, oh, I'm gonna just pay my own self. Right, or pay my own company. So that was purposeful.
Do you find it hard because you don't need necessarily properties to clean. You can like you said outsource to other things.
Sure.
Do you find it harder to do things like that? So like when it's not your property management, it's still all right. Let me clean this people.
Oh no, I have no issue with that.
Okay.
So like Clean Moves is. It's a brand that stands on its own, right? That has nothing to do with D. Harvey Pitts Management. That's his own thing. Clean Moves specializes in move in and move out cleaning. Just like eventually one day when it's gonna happen soon. When you think of just like people think of Uber, right? They're gonna be like, oh, a taxi. Oh, Uber. You're like, oh, you moving out? Oh, call Clean Moves. Like.
You guys currently are just in the DMV area, but do you do state to state or interstate?
No, not yet. But that's the biggest reason why I created this brand is because move in and move out cleaning is something that everybody deals with, right? Every single no matter where you are, right? Every place does real estate. Right, because that is the bulk of our clientele is real estate, realtors, working with realtors, and so it's something that can be duplicated, right? Just like similar, if you guys ever heard of Stanley Steamer,
yeah,
right? People think what do you guys know Stanley Steamer as?
Carpet cleaning.
Carpet cleaning, right?
They got the jingle.
That carpet cleaning, right? So it's the same thing. It's like eventually, the process and these systems that I built can be duplicated. And they can be taken. They can work in Detroit, Michigan. They can work in Los Angeles.
I like that. You talked earlier about Airbnb just being the name or basically the front facing of what it means to rent out your house. Mm-hmm. Do you have to, for your property, do you have to go through Airbnb or the VRPO, or do you just, hey, I have a website, come by come rent out my room, or do you need these platforms?
So it depends. You can. They're good. Like they're just marketing platforms.
Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna just spend more on. You're gonna spend more. You don't have to use them, but the only difference is you're gonna just have to beat out your own marketing, right? So you're gonna have to spend your marketing dollars, whether it's on Google, Yelp, to be able to get to the top, so that when people think of going to find a place, they're going to type in, your business or whatever way. So, yeah, you can. And, that's why it's good to have a brand, right? So, like, I've been fortunate enough to have, like, sometimes when people think of, hey, I need a place. Let me call Dajuan and let me think of D. Harvey Pitts. So that is good. So, yeah, you can book directly through us as well.
What is... Because we always talk of people in particular, like secondary homes, property, investment properties. People talk about hey, this is a great way to make money and all the benefits. I'm curious as to what happens when maybe that person doesn't pay or is maybe doesn't pay isn't
Like the renter, you're saying?
Yeah, isn't as forthcoming. You maybe have to do a little bit of chasing per se.
So in the short term rental game, that doesn't happen. You don't necessarily meaning like chasing. You're not chasing the customer, but for instance, if you're saying like a person can more or less, right? They can do this. They can rent out an apartment at an apartment complex, and try to list it on Airbnb. Most times that's illegal, but that's called rental arbitrage. In a lot of ways, that's like you have to go through a lease that pretty much says like what is it allowed to, because sometimes that is allowed, right? But
subletting.
It's not subletting because a lot of times a lot of people call it corporate rentals. So that means like so as me, a lot of things helped me because I was a real property manager. So a lot of times, a lot of teams, you have these companies, right? So whether that's like say it's Nassau or something like that, they'll have people who move here and they'll rent apartment and they'll be called a corporate lease. So that means that the company is paying the rent, right? They're paying the rent to the property management company, and people are coming in and out, right? But that corporate company might not be listed on Airbnb, right? So it's a stigma. So a lot of times, a lot of people be like, "Oh yeah, you do Airbnb," because that's what people look at Airbnb as like a party or a young people place, but really it's just a short-term rental platform. But yes, you could get into, depending on like in Atlanta. Oh my gosh, that's all they do. That's like rental arbitrage is such a thing because your rent might be you only pay $400, make $4,000. You know what I'm saying? Like it depends on where it is, but here, right, the game's so different. But in DC, starting April 10th, you cannot. It has to be a primary residence for owners.
Well, talk to us a bit about like these, because I've been big on like what did the laws say. You brought up April 10th. Explain to us maybe what people who maybe are into this or want to get into it, what laws they should be kind of looking forward to in this new year.
So I'll be quite honest. It's as simple as on April 10th, starting in Washington D.C., you have to have a short-term rental license or vacation rental license. A short-term rental license means that. For instance, if you it has to be a primary residence. So that means that you have to be eligible for the Homestead Deduction Act, Homestead Deduction, which means that like basically, there's an application you have to do that shows that hey, this is your primary residence in DC, and then you have to have insurance that says you're that $250,000 insurance. And you have to have a license. These two licenses, either one of them, your short-term rental license, meaning that you are in the home and you're present in the home while you are renting it on one of these short-term rental platforms for 30 days or less, or you're on vacation doing a vacation rental, and that means that you get 90 nights in a calendar year to rent it out, and you do not have to be present. And that's for 30 days or less at a time.
Are these laws things that you consider? Are these laws things you consider everyone like kind of knows, or is very particular to your expertise in your profession?
Well, starting now, you can't even. When April 10th comes, if you look at the Airbnb app and you have a home or you have an investment property, you have a property in DC, it's not going to be listed anymore because you have to register and you have to put your license number now.
Dang.
So like now they've done this because we talk about, it goes back to real estate, is the fact that so many people were coming in DC, right, and they were buying up property, and then they were using it on short-term rentals, and the government wasn't messed up the hotel industry. So when things get affected,
Didn't they fuck up the retail market too? I mean, the real estate market too?
Yeah, it messed up the real estate market. It drove things up to really high. So that's one of the reasons why now.
They was talking about that shit in North Capitol. They was talking like how all them houses over there was like worth hundreds of thousands. Now they going for like 2.5 million and shit. All this wild shit. Correct,
and that's kind of what happened, right? That is why these these parameters that came in and changed the game.
I'm curious as well as what happens when, because we might be talking about short-term rentals. What happens when someone doesn't do what they're supposed to do while in the rental? So let's say,
Oh man,
Monday through there's Friday through Monday. On Monday, they leave the keys or whatever with you, and you come back, and it's not the property that you left them with.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with that?
So there's this thing called air cover. Well, one, depending on, I would encourage anybody who's in the short-term rental game to always have insurance, right? That's important.
Any specific or just
professional liability for sure, but you're also covered within the rental platform, right? If you use one, because some people don't use them. So if you use them, you can put a claim in through Airbnb. It's called Air Cover. VRBO has a claim system as well. It's called Air Cover. So you can utilize one of those platforms, put in a claim, and things happen. Because things happen. People have parties, and like for instance,
Shit happens.
yeah, we just had an issue at one of my properties. Not issue. It was crazy though because it was it was the day before Christmas. We had some people that was there, and they actually broke the bed. Like the bed frame was broken, and I got people coming in on Christmas Eve. But that's why it's important to have systems, right? So we were able to go to have a backup. And just have a bed frame or have something else to kind of swap it out to get it done, to have somebody else be able to take care of it, so then by the time other people check in, they don't even know.
Is that the stressful? Because that to me would seem like the stressful part. Something breaks, I have to run it. Like, is it the team? Is it you? How do you deal with those things?
Well, I think as I'm growing, I think that one, experience that helps. And for sure, having a team is very important. Having people, one thing about me is that I know what I'm good at, right? I think that's important. And I don't mind bringing someone in that's better than me, because I don't need to be great at everything. I just got to be good at what I'm good at, right? And if I'm willing to
delegate
and help and pay, because all that is going to do is just it's going to help me to do what I'm good at. I want to focus on what I'm good at.
We talk about delegation and things, and it makes me think of the nonprofit you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's actually how it's crazy, because that's actually that's the first business I've ever had. That was the first real business when we did our nonprofit.
First Base Inc., correct?
First Base Inc. So First Base Inc. is it's basically a nonprofit 501c3 organization that was started by 5 friends that went to VCU, and pretty much we wanted to utilize you give people skills, whether that's resources, in order to kind of, as we say, hit a home run. So like in life, that's kind of, we got the first base thing is you gotta get the first base, second base, and to hit a home run is
around the bases,
right? But yes, that's to say. But first base, what was your question?
I don't even remember right? But I was asking just because I'm looking at the shirt, rapper, athlete, entrepreneur, and it just had me thinking that you've been talking about community and what you're good at, and what delegation of responsibilities, how that played a part. Does that like you said, that was the first one, but is that the one that keeps everything else going? Is it just
they have nothing to do with each other. First base is pretty much I would say, when I want to, because at the end of the day, I realized years ago is that everything's centered around helping people. That's the key to everything. When a rich person gives $1 million, they're really there. They're helping people, but they're helping themselves in a lot of ways too, right? So, and that's what this world is about. It's pretty much those type of, it's a reverse thing when you do something like that. But that's what it's centered on. The more people you help, the more successful you are. And pretty much when that whole first base thing, Inc. thing started based on me just wanting to play kickball and me wanting to do something. And that's kind of when I realized that was truly when I kind of knew college, but I knew then, all right, I'm good at this. I'm good at this part, like managing people and putting things together. That was when I first realized.
At the beginning, you said real estate is like therapy, or being a realtor is like being a therapist and some. It's weird because we've had people on this platform who are mixologists, and they said sort of the same thing, that it's the extra, not the extra, but the kind of the human element that makes their job what it is. Why do you think for you in real estate that is an important part, like the human element?
Because when you first get in real estate and you're in class, I'll never forget this. The people are going to tell you, go through your phone, look at your contacts, and they're going to say that's your first client. People do business well. People love doing business with people that they know, right? So like whoever you know, sometimes like that's the person you want to go with.
Ain't that the truth?
And that's you. and I think that is kind of like that's what it is, and it's all about relationships. And I think that's the key to everything.
Well, you taught us a lot in this episode. I've learned about short-term rentals. I've learned about new laws coming to the DC area. I'm curious if let's say I wanted to buy a house right now, like today. I was like, oh, I saw this episode. I'm going to hit Dajuan. What would you want the first question to be from a prospective client?
If buying a house,
Mm-hmm.
you came to me, you were saying you wanted to buy a house.
I was like, yo, man, I need a house. I just can't stay where I want a house.
Why do you want it? I mean, I always ask people, because why do you want it? Because if you tell me you want it, if you tell me you want a house and you want it to be in your family forever, or it's just your first property, I'm gonna tell you should live in DC, because that's forever. That's where you're gonna get rich at. If you live in DC, you're gonna be rich, because all these people, it's not Chocolate City anymore, but that means a lot. It means a lot. It's not Chocolate City anymore. That means you keep this
property value go crazy.
Generational wealth, right? It's gonna go up. That's the only place it's gonna go up. Every day the price is right. As soon as you buy a house, Sally gonna look at how much your house sold for. It's like, oh, I'm at least getting that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing. Why? Because that's also gonna tell me, like, what are you in this for? Because sometimes some people look at, it's not just your house. Your first house is just your first investment. But some people don't. You got to change your mindset. Like, where you are today might not be where you could be 10 years from now. It's different. 5 years or 2 years, it's different.
I say I got kids. Say I got a kid. I got my second kid on the way. I'm like, this apartment not cutting it for me, da-da-da. What would your advice be for someone in that predicament?
Apartment not cutting for you, what you want? A house?
Well, see, and I think, and that's why I'm asking these questions, because I'm curious, because I think that may be a lot of people's issue. Maybe they want something more than an apartment, but they don't want it. So, like, how do you navigate maybe the person who's in between? Like, yo, I got a decent job, I have enough money, but this apartment is too small. I've outgrown this, or this part of town, I don't want to live here. Like we talked about the lady earlier. How do you kind of navigate? Because I think that's, to me, the interesting part when you talk about therapists and therapy with this job, because I can see that. I can see how, like, someone has to make, like, I want to be in a certain school district. I want to be closer to my job. Like, how do you navigate all these different things?
Well, I would start. Well, can I ask you some questions? I'm actually real. Can I ask you some questions?
Let's go.
Why'd you choose where you wanted to live? Why'd you decide to buy a house where you bought a house?
I wanted to live in PG.
Okay.
I've only lived in PG, like, not only, but like
You've
my whole
always
life.
loved PG.
That's just been my place. I wanted my own. Like, I didn't want to, like, live on top of somebody. Okay. So for me, a single family home was kind of like, I need to do that. Need to be da. And also I need to be close enough to the people who are so like I'm not too far from my parents, I'm not too far from my sister, like all the people who are kind of like in my people in my life, they're not too far from me, so it all made it worth it.
So all of those things, that's exactly what I would ask. I would just ask, okay. Most of the things you gotta listen to people. Anything, people you're not gonna do nothing you don't want to do, right? I'm only doing what you're allowing me to do, like what you talk about, right? Because you're my client, right? You don't pay me. That's the thing. You don't pay me, but us getting to the deal and getting to the end is what's gonna pay me. So I gotta listen to you, and at the end of the day, more or less, you're making this decision. You gotta live in this house, right? So this is your investment. You gotta pay the mortgage, and so I'm gonna listen to you, and I'm gonna say, all I'm gonna do is you're gonna tell me you outgrew this home. Well, okay, well, this is how much it says. This is what we could do, right? And this is where we're at. So you want this house, like this is, I'm guiding you, but pretty much I'm guiding you and helping you, but really much like a lot of times I'm listening to you because you're telling me what you want, because this is where you're going to be. You're going to create these memories with little JoJo and Tommy, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I love your nicknames for people. Little JoJo, Tommy. What was it, Sheila earlier? I'm curious though, because you're a professional, you've been doing this for a long enough time to know when someone is making a bad decision. You might not say it, but you know in your heart of hearts, what's that moment like?
A bad decision.
Just in your mind, you're like, they shouldn't buy this house. This is not going to be what they need. From everything they've told me, everything I'm listening to, and they still say this. And you're like,
I haven't had that personally yet where I felt like a person made a terrible decision. And it's just because if you lose, I lose, right? Because all you're going to do is not about having you a client as one time. It's about forever. It's everything about relationships, I have a relationship with you since 14 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, that's what it's about. It's not about, because if this house goes bad, everything is going to be like, well, Dajuan, it might not really be, my fault, but you're like, well, Dajuan didn't say this, and Dajuan didn't do this, so it's like, it comes back on me. So I wouldn't, it depends, and it's important to me to, I think that for me to be honest, too, and it's the biggest thing is actually, well, what do you want? That's what it goes back to. What do you want? If you tell me you want a family and you want this and you want that, well, you want a family and you want to be able to, I'm like, okay, well, what about in Arnold County? Because you're going to always be able to rent there.
And it's by a naval base. I mean, a military base.
Military base. So it's like, what do you want? Because it's about the long game for me. I'm not trying to be a little pump. I want to be Hove. Like, I want to be forever. And it's like, that's a difference.
damn, that's deep, man. I think because I don't think it's. Oh, go ahead. Man.
All I was going to ask is like, so do you do condos too?
Yeah, I would. If that's what you want, for sure. Like, if you want.
We just talking about like a lot of houses, and then some people just like, I know like for their first investment, they're not ready for like a house. But like a condo could be a similar investment. Like you could own the condo, move out. That could be your first like
it can
jump. Like that should be your first rental property. And then after you move out, get a home and shit. So
it's great. No, it's nothing wrong with those. Whatever, real estate is real estate. If it's a condo, it's like it's just different parameters, right? It just different things, logistics. But yeah, condos, nothing wrong with a condo. Just depends on where the condo is.
I was just asking because I live in Suitland.
Okay.
And this condo's popping up around that jump. Like from like the southeast.
Why you think that? Why
like
do
the
you think
southeast
that?
side to coming up Suitland Parkway. Why do I think that? Just because of the area and the type of people that it attracts. Because I think it's like it's our age type. Like anywhere from like the young professional just getting out of high school. I mean, just getting out of college to let's say 33, 35. You know what I'm saying? Then it's just like the housing market over there. You might not be able to afford a house, but location wise, you still get a very nice jump. You getting paid. You get still paid for the location. You got the metro right there. Shit, Suitland Road, Suitland Parkway, boom, right there. City right there if you driving. You know what I'm saying? And property management.
I got a good question for you. I heard this from I think it was like Dame Dash or something.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, Benz owns Maybach, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So why is there what's the lowest Benz?
Now.
Was it
Now.
CLA 250?
I was gonna say the A, but
Okay. But how many people could afford Maybachs?
Very few.
Very few.
But there is
Oh,
a
you
Maybach.
talking about actually afford, or because depends on how you get it. Are you leasing it or you buying it?
It doesn't matter. But how many? Even if you lease it, it's gonna cost you something.
Yeah, for sure.
But how many people can't afford
Oh yeah,
it?
no, not too many.
So let's look at a Maybach as a house. Then you got CLA 250s. Not necessarily the same, but you gotta have.
Yeah.
You gotta have a Maybach.
It's levels.
It's levels, and some people want to be in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to have a Benz. I want a CLA 250, and that's the difference. It's like I want to be in the game. It's different. It's different rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. It's different things. It's different level.
Mm-hmm.
More taxes.
For sure.
More you gotta do. You gotta answer to these people around when you're in a condo. It's different levels, but you gotta. The dream is to have the Maybach.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different type of ownership.
Talk about rules and there's levels.
Did you stamp on the Maybach? You can't lease that.
For you, are there certain rules that you sort of live and die by when it comes to this? Hey, if you make X amount, your mortgage shouldn't be this. Or if you if you your initial housing offer, if you get approved for $500,000, you should only get a house worth I'm just curious.
I don't necessarily the rules wise. I think rules is because every deal and every person is different. I think fundamentally, rules I have within myself, whether that is like, I want you to not everybody some people because people you're helping someone make a decision that's going to be that they feel like it's forever. So I think the biggest thing is more of I would tell people, okay, I would ask people, can you do this, right? Can you afford this, right? Because I don't want you, that's big to me. I don't want you, because sometimes some people are going to get in something that maybe can't, handle, and some people can, but because the banks, they're not looking out for you as much as you would think. But I would say for me, it's more I want you to be happy. At least when we decide to get to this point and we get signed these papers, you gotta be happy. How'd you feel that day when you signed your papers for your house?
I was quite happy. I was actually talking to someone recently about that fact that I enjoy my house. I just enjoy it. I don't know necessarily the thing, but I enjoy the house. The house makes me happy. When I go in the house, I'm like, okay, I'm happy.
And I think that's important to me, because you're going to always think of the process. It's just like when you do with anything, when you get to the finish line is not really the part that you think about the most. It's the journey. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's always going to be a part of that, that's important.
Before we wrap this up, I want to go back to the First Base Inc. You brought up kickball. It was a legendary kickball game one day. It was very legendary. He was there. Yeah, I was there.
Jake was there.
A few other people was there. Talk to us about just what made you, because you talked about you knew you were good at that. That was a very fun experience. It was a great experience. Thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
For sure.
What made you kind of want to do that, and can we be expecting more of those to come?
Yeah. What made me kind of do that was the fact that I wanted to help people. And I wanted to have fun. So I created it. So this event is basically people come a person can participate in a large kickball game. They bring 10 non-perishable items, or however many we decide, right? And that's kind of what kind of started it. And I was just like, okay. And I saw in that moment like how cool it was when we dropped off everything, and we turned in the cans and we turned in non-perishable items, and I realized, okay, we helped somebody. And then, I like that feeling. So that's kind of what started, was the feeling. The feeling was like, oh, this feels good. And then I just think about how the people feel, how you feel. Like, it's been a couple years, and look, you're still talking about it. So it's like, that's
such a fun time.
So then so, if anything, if you look at something, obviously it was good. So that means, like, there needs to be more of it, or there needs to be some sort of it. And I think COVID's kind of started things, and I think you guys went to the first one, and then we had one more. But we haven't had one, I would say, like 2 years. It's been some time because of COVID. But I definitely know that that's something we're working towards, and I, love y'all to be a part of it in some ways.
Listen, kickball, we're there, buddy.
Okay.
We're there.
Chuck already talked to us. We game.
Okay.
We're there.
Yeah,
we're game.
for sure.
I really enjoy this. I learned more about short-term rentals than I would ever thought I would.
That's why I didn't talk this
ever
whole episode. I was a student today.
I was
learning.
We've done a lot of talking, and you answer a lot of questions. But is there anything that we haven't hit on that you are like, hey, people need to know this?
People need to know. I think just in general, and this is the thing. We talked about some things, but it's just like, at the end of the day, like, I love business, right? I love business. Like, I love, like, you guys have been doing this for some years, right? And you gotta get better at your craft. And I think in general, like, I think that no matter what field or whatever you do, like, it's important to understand and to learn and want to be knowledgeable, want to grow in business, whatever you're doing, And I think that general, this is those are just things that I do. Mm-hmm. Right, I have a business. I have those things or businesses, but it's like, I love business. Like, that's what's like for instance, I had a question, like, why did I start this podcast?
Question? I think we started it because me and him always used to talk in this kind of manner. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, you can't just keep texting somebody all your fucking, like, your 40-minute thoughts every day.
But we also weren't living in the same state. Like,
at the time.
He was living in Philly, and I was living in North Carolina.
Okay.
So, and I think when you add that kind of relationship, and then the fact that, to me, he's probably like the most technological sound person I know. Like, when it comes to, like, doing stuff, I know if I asked him, he could make it work. So it was one of those things where, like, we do this, like, me and him, we're doing this, and he's the only person who I know could make it, if that
Bring
makes
it all
sense.
together.
Okay.
So it was more so like, this has to be done.
So, for instance, when did y'all learn about, like, the business of this? Because this is the thing. But y'all have been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You know what? I think it will be the first time we went to Miami.
Yeah.
For, like, the pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I think it was like you said, there's a business aspect to it. You know, it's more than just sitting here and then talking. I think that's the easy part. That's the part that doesn't take nothing.
This is simple.
You can go upload, boom, boom, boom. It was the part where, like, well, people have to reach out to you, or you're reaching out to people.
Like, you got package merch up. Like,
what
you
does that?
Find a way how you gotta get
What
your
does
merch
that
to
mean?
a different state.
Merch is important, and revenue aspect, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's when you ask when, I think it was that part when it was like, it's not just about uploading something no more.
Like, we traveling with.
It's about
clothing.
making something and creating something that kind of lasts past the once you upload it. It's more to it than just that. Like, to me now it's more than just that. It's detached from that. So sometimes people don't even have to like ever listen. If they like see something, they might be like, "Oh, what's that?" Mm-hmm. And I think that's when it became a greater thing.
For me, I'd say like the last 2 years for real, because like Chuck said, like the pop ups and all that, like that part of the business, I feel like we conquered that already. Like anytime we do a pop up, like we don't really worry about it. Like if it's a good day, okay. If it's a bad day, okay. But we have way more good days than bad days when we sell merch, even with old merch. So, but like now, it's just like with the things we got going on and the emails and stuff like that, just like that's the part of business I think we're like expanding to, like the conversations with different companies and like using them, like partnering with them and then promoting certain products and like leasing your name and shit like that. Them leasing their name to you and shit like just figuring those type of things out. Like if we go to a streaming platform and have a conversation, say Spotify, they don't have a visual aspect. You know what I'm saying? It's all audio. So like that contract should not include the visual aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of business acumen and knowledge, I think I got interested in like the last 2 years.
But I think that's like amazing, right? But that's the key thing. Like it's so many. But that's what I would say. Like it's so much to this, right? It might have started off as this, but it's like it's so much. And the fact that you even know that. Like, if you went in there, say y'all.
The first question I asked Charles was, "What is a podcast?" Like when he said, "Hey, bro, we about to start a podcast." Literally, the first thing I asked him was, "What the fuck is a podcast?" He said, verbatim, no asshole shit. He's my friend, but he said, "You're a smart man. You'll figure it out." That's literally what he said to me. Because he's just like, he knew I was coming home soon and all that. So he's just like, "You're a smart man. You'll figure it out." And I Googled it. The first thing they said was like. It didn't even have a definition. It had an example.
Was Tax Stone out yet?
Yeah,
Tax Stone was out, but they gave me like
it's like 2014.
Yeah, what's that? Like Don Imus and like Don Imus and XM Radio.
Okay.
Like they gave them examples. Like they didn't even say Tax Stone, and so I was just like, oh, why? So it's just like a radio show. So I was like, oh, I bet it's just audio though. Mm-hmm. And then I'm watching YouTube and I'm learning shit, and it's just like, oh. And it's like, these niggas signing deals, and it's like, there's no audio for that. But I'm only watching them on YouTube. But audio's in their contract, that don't make sense. And then, like, we're big fans of music, and everybody talk about 360 deals and, like, contracts and knowing your distribution and all that shit. It's the same thing with podcasting. Because, like, if we partner with somebody, we only need y'all to distribute the shit. You know what I'm saying? If our shit worked out properly, then you should be paying us for the RNS code. So you can distribute us. It should be a partnership. So we should get a piece off top from you even asking to do this if we negotiate it correctly.
See? And that's what I like. And I think that's what anything, what no matter what you do, I think that's the exciting part. That's the, because it's obviously been a journey for you to go from that, right? You had a passion and now it's turned into, something different.
Passion was nowhere near this, brother. Charles pulled me from the slums of North Carolina. It's like, I came home. Charles was just like, hey, bro, we about to do it. We about to do a pod. And I was just like, all right. And then
Charles asked me for equipment.
Dead ass.
He just said, yo.
Yeah.
He said, like, yo, what type of equipment I need to do a podcast? And as Chris said, like, what the fuck is a podcast?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I heard about this shit. But then it was like, yo, I just need equipment.
See,
like, all
right.
right.
Very vague with this
shit.
shit.
I just need equipment. Next thing you know, here we are 5 years later.
Yeah, lights, and we missing 2 of our cameramen, but yeah, like it's a whole thing crazy, now, bro.
But do you want to know the best thing that I heard is the fact that
Charles went to his man's.
He went to y'all. He went. He said, "You the best person for this. You the person. You the glue. I can't even. You can't even get to this point without you." And, this is, me and you do this, we're really good at this. And it's like, the world should know this. Because that's really what it is. It's different. It went from text messages to something bigger. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the cool thing about it. Like he probably, because obviously he knew what it was before, right?
He was in the field. He knew what the fuck a podcast was. I didn't know what it was.
I didn't either.
I'm a tech nigga. I didn't even know what the fuck.
And I think that's the cool part, right? That because who would have thought, things would have grew into this.
Exactly.
This guy Charles.
He said, "Who would have known it was good?" I was agreeing with him. It's a good man right there.
3 episodes.
For sure.
He definitely stated we was going through 3 episodes. And that was it. Yes.
And now 200. And now y'all coming up on 200. That's big, and that's big, and that's flowers. That's something that y'all, because businesses they go to the left side every day.
Hey man, there's some podcasts that's
You guys are too much. This is the part of the episode. This man has taught us. Normally we don't get taught. We learned a lot today. If you want a house, it's the man. You got a property you need management?
It's the man. You got
Need
a property you need cleaned.
If you want to do something good for the community, listen, I gave you 4 things. This is the guy to go to. But before we leave, I'm going to look into the camera. You're just going to tell them. You can tell them something about yourself, about the businesses, about life. And,
The first thing I would say is, I never forget when January 29th, 2020 is going to be 2 years that I've been a full-time entrepreneur. And I would say the biggest thing that somebody told me was like, somebody challenged me when I first started. It's like, you don't know anything about being an entrepreneur. And she was right, I ended up, deciding that I'm going to marry her.
yes, sir. Let's make some noise for that.
And she challenged me at that point, and she was right. And I think at that moment in that time, I had these businesses, and I didn't know what I had a vision, but I didn't really see what I see now. But I think that just making sure that you want to be the best at whatever you do. You want to. Someone told me like, you got to dominate. And that's where it goes back to some of the things that we talked about in this episode. That you want people who no matter where you are, if you are the best stripper in the world, for a person be like, when someone thinks of a strip club, they be like, call so and so, right? That's the biggest compliment you can ever get in this world.
Shout out to the strippers.
Is that no matter what you do, no matter what you do, that you think of that person. Just like if a person be like, I want a soda, they might say Coke. You just want to be associated with whatever to being the best at whatever you do. And I think if you're good at that, you'll be able to take it far. And just make sure that and utilize your resources and bring the best out of your friends, like kind of what these fellas did, and utilize those resources around you, because that's important.
Sorry.
You good? No.
That was ignorance.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. And like I said, if I could help you, I would love to. And just utilize this information and just educate yourself and read books and listen to books. That's another thing that's really helped me, is listening and listening to books and listening to people. If anybody ever tell me what I'm really good at, I would say I'm good at listening. And I think that's what's going to get you far.
We talked about it earlier. You said someone told you to be a good realtor. And look at where we got you here. Also, his friend told him use his resources. Look what we got here. So, hey, listen, the man has dropped life lessons for you and a bunch of gems. How do they reach you? Listen, where the ads? They're trying to get these houses popping, buddy.
So, you can at me at Dajuan Pitts. It's DAJUANPITTS, and from there you can you will be able to find everything else. But you can also, cleaning wise, WeCleanYouMove.com. Think of clean moves. We Clean You Move. So if you're moving or you need a deep cleaning, call Clean Moves. So WeCleanYouMove.com, spelled exactly as it sounds. No if and no in betweens. WeCleanYouMove.com.
No phonetic creativity.
And property, no phonetic creativity. Property management wise is D Harvey, DHARVEY Pitts, pitts.com. You can actually book all of our listings on drpitts.com too as well. That's how you can find us.
Listen, get your house clean, find you a place to stay, and maybe even get a home all in one place. Good man, Dajuan Pitts, make some fucking noise.